Hey folks, I'm Dr. Abdul Manan. Welcome back to the channel. Now today I want to talk to you about an important topic, one that comes up quite a bit in medical interviews, and that is abortion in the UK. This is an evergreen topic and I've seen it come up many times, and I think it's important you understand this topic from a few different angles so that you can navigate through questions like this should it come up in your medical school interviews. Now before I get started, it's important to note that, look, these aren't my personal views. In all these type of scenarios, it's important to come across impartial. It's important to come across professional. It's important to look at it from different angles so that we can weigh up pros and cons and we can be comprehensive, I guess, when we provide answers. So let's break it down. A lot of what we discuss when we talk about abortion in the UK relates back to the Abortion Act of 1967. That is when the UK decided to make abortion legal. However, it needs to meet certain specific requirements. The Act requires that two doctors are in agreement in order to sign and allow the abortion to take place. So what are those conditions? Well, there's a few. Let's look at them. The doctors have to agree that we are preventing some permanent injury. We are preventing perhaps physical, perhaps mental health problems in the person who is pregnant. The doctors have to agree that perhaps the continuation of the pregnancy is injurious to the child, to the pregnancy, to the fetus, perhaps injurious to the pregnant woman in question. The doctors might also agree that continuation of the pregnancy is injurious and potentially damaging to the health of the pregnant person and perhaps their family. Crucially, in what I've just said, you can see that what we are thinking about is primarily the health and well-being of the mother, of the pregnant person. We need to make sure that we are not putting the person's life at risk, whether it's mentally or physically. Abortions in the UK can take place up to 24 weeks of pregnancy. Beyond 24 weeks, in the UK, abortions cannot happen unless there is substantial risk to the mother or the child that will be born from this pregnancy will have significant and life-threatening conditions. Beyond the legalities, what you will have to think about in the interview situation is ethical dilemmas here. And it's important to look at it from all different angles. Let's look at autonomy. Now, where it comes to autonomy, you have to think about the mother's rights, the mother's autonomy to make decisions. That is central, of course, here. Then, of course, you have the beneficence issue, which is acting in the best interest of your patient, the mother. Of course, there is something important about non-maleficence here, which is harm to the mother and perhaps harm to the baby itself. Now, justice is important when it comes to abortion in that we want to apply the rules fairly across all sections of the community, regardless of religion, creed, background, wealth status, and so forth. So I think you'll have to think about how these ethical pillars apply themselves in the given scenario. Examiners want to see that you apply ethics in an appropriate manner, in a fair manner, without just wholesale discussion about each and every pillar. What is important in that particular scenario they set? Think about it like that and make sure it's appropriate. In the UK, there are two types of abortion. One is medical and one is surgical. The medical abortion, which is quite common, is of course where medication is provided to the mother so that then when it is taken, it induces the abortion. In circumstances where the fetus has to be removed surgically, you go for the surgical abortion. And this is of course decided by the specialist at the time. And of course it is a method, the surgical method, where you can use that for abortions. Surgical abortion involves of course doing the abortion surgically. And in some circumstances, this is preferred or necessary above the medical option. The choice of how the abortion is carried out, of course, depends on a number of factors, i.e. the stage of pregnancy, the mutual agreement between the specialist and the mother, And of course, there may be other circumstances at play, i.e., can medical abortion be considered given the situation and given the requirements of the mother? An important consideration to have when it comes to looking at stakeholders, especially you as a clinician, the doctor, you'd probably have to think about conscientious objection. Conscientious objection, what is it? Well, it is essentially your beliefs. Can you as a clinician take part in the act of abortion? You have a right to decide whether you are part of this, because the law recognizes that you as an individual may have an ethical consideration here. You may have religious objections, you may have cultural objections to this. So the law allows that to take place here. It allows you to back off from being part of that two-doctor process. It allows you to back off. However, what it doesn't allow you to do is totally disengage. So if somebody comes to you requesting abortion, you cannot simply say, I don't want to know. What you have to do as a conscientious objector is facilitate the process for the mother, i.e., refer them to someone else who can help them make decisions so that you can safely disengage. So this is something you might want to think about. So why is this topic so important? And why is it so important to come up in interviews and test you as a future doctor? Well, perhaps it's because it is an evergreen issue, it is an ethical dilemma, and it is going to come up every now and again. And I'm sure as a future doctor, you'll come across this at some point in your career. It's important to show awareness of current issues and dilemmas we face in healthcare system. It's important that you can demonstrate your thinking both critically and ethically. It's important that you display patient-centered thinking and be able to manage difficult decision making. I think it's also important to be able to display respect for the law and also to respect patients and their requests, even in situations where you may not agree. As a summary, abortion in the UK, it's a medically and ethically complex issue. You need to be able to navigate around the main issues as an aspiring medic. If it comes up in your interviews, you need to be able to consider the ethics, the cultural issues, perhaps conscientious objection issues, be able to look at stakeholder issues in this scenario, and be able to discuss it in a fair and open manner. I hope this has given you a solid foundation in how you can understand this topic and then relay your thoughts in an interview situation. Thank you.